So Hearthstone's new expansion got announced. It's called Titans, and it's themed around the Titans, the celestial gods in World of Warcraft, and I absolutely adore this theme. I've done so many custom card videos on Titans, and I've talked about how I want Titans forever, and they're finally here, and man, do they seem like they might be kind of crazy busted. So we're going to talk about the new keyword here with Titan. We're going to talk about Titan Keeper legendary minions. We're going to talk about another new keyword called Forge, and take a look at 13 cards in this video. So let's kick it off here with ANR the Lifebinder, because this card looks absolutely bonkers, and this will help us explain how Titans work. So ANR is a 10 mana 5/7 minion. All of these Titan minions, of which each class it looks like is going to get one legendary Titan. The way these work is you play them down, and instead of attacking normally, they have an ability that you can use instead. So she'll kind of plop down, she'll be blue, you'll click her, kind of like clicking a location almost. The turn you play her, there is an option to click, and you'll get one of these three abilities, which you can already see are completely insane effects for this card. Just totally busted. Draw until your hand is full, restore your hero to full health, or refresh your mana crystals. So you get one of those right away, the turn you play ANR. You also get to get the bonus here of her card text, which is that after you use one of these abilities, you get a 5/5. So it's turn 10, you play ANR, you select, let's say, Bountiful Harvest, you get a 5/7, you get a 5/5, and you heal your hero to full. That's your first turn with ANR. Now, if ANR lives into your second turn with her on board, then you get to use a second ability. You don't get to attack with the card while you still have ability charges left. So if she lives into the second turn, guess what? Now you get to, say, draw cards until your hand is full. You've stabilized your health. Now you're going to get some resources. When you do, you get another bonus 5/5 because she's still on board. Her card text is going to activate again. So for free, just by clicking the card, you get this crazy effect once again. And then, by God, if she lives into a third turn, you get to use the third ability. You can't use the same ability twice, and there's only 3 total ability uses per Titan. Once you've used all 3, if she's somehow still alive yet again, maybe it's an arena game or something, I don't know, then you can actually attack normally with the card at that stage. But most of the time, you're not going to be attacking with these. Most of the time, you're only going to get one ability, so you have to make it count on that first ability, but these are pretty darn strong. But the chance to go nuts with these hitting 2 or more times is completely crazy. So these are threats that simply just have to be dealt with on board. So really, I think, when we're judging these in a review, we're going to be looking in most scenarios at just that first hit. How good can the Titan be on its first ability press? We're assuming they're very rarely going to get to, be activated more than one time. That said, as you can see with this one, it's just a crazy effect. Getting a 5/7, a 5/5, and one of these just monster effects is nuts, even for 10 mana. And of course, we know with Druid, 10 mana is really 10 mana. So this is going to be coming down at some pretty crazy times. So potentially full health is nuts. Just drawing, 8, 9, 10 cards off this while still developing some board, because you're going to get that 5/7 and that 5/5. That's kind of crazy. And with mana refresh and mana cheat, you may even be able to play some cards afterwards, of course, draw into some stuff you're playing down for 0 mana after you've refilled your hand, etc. And then sometimes just a 5/5 and a 5/7, and then getting another 10 mana to go again and do something crazy with Flourish is going to be awesome as well. So I think this card looks busted powerful in Druid. Crazy effect. And we got one more Titan to take a look at, so it doesn't stop here. So next up is Norganon for Mage, a 6 mana 3/8 Titan. And this time around, after he uses one of his abilities, it's going to double the power of the other abilities. The abilities are Progenitor's Power, deal 5, Ancient Knowledge, enemy cards cost 1 more next turn, and Unlimited Potential, cast 1 random Mage Secret. So on the first pass, a 6 mana 3/8 that deals 5. I think that's pretty solid in a lot of cases. Maybe use that to swing the board, maybe just push some chip damage through. But if you're in a matchup in particular where you think this 8 health on turn 6 is kind of likely to stick, maybe you're playing against a board-based stack and you've managed to win the board a little bit, they're not going to be able to take great trades in an Organon and maybe just don't have 8 damage to clean it up, then what you can do is use one of the options that maybe isn't as exciting. Maybe you go for a secret here because you think that helps increase the survivability of an Organon. and then it's going to double Progenitor's power, going to 10 damage. And then, you know, like, okay, suddenly I'm talking about a Pyroblast next turn for free. I just get to click Norgadon and I'm going to get to deal 10 damage to whatever I want. And then, you know, maybe you feel really greedy and safe and you think, okay, wait, now I've got Ancient Knowledge that's making my opponent's cards cost 2 more. Maybe if I make their cards cost 2 more, they definitely can't deal with Norgadon. So you go for Ancient Knowledge, then your Progenitor's power is going to double up to 20 damage. And we saw in the reveal video, this thing going off for 20, of course, hitting your opponent's face for 20 is completely insane. So if you've set up some way to protect this or preserve this card in some way through like secrets or just based on the matchup, you can get absolutely nutty results with the Progenitor's power. Sometimes you may not be able to be that greedy. You may have to play it safe, just go for the 5. Maybe just take the 3/8 in a secret and be happy and just hope for the best. Or maybe just use that Ancient Knowledge as a disruption. Now, Ancient Knowledge is disruptive, right? It's usually when we see these sort of disruptions, they're like directional towards spells or minions. This is just all cards. So that is pretty punishing. Sometimes that just might be the right play to shut down your opponent's combos or really just put them behind in the game, especially if you think that increases the survivability of Norgadon. You might just go Ancient Knowledge first and then just get whatever you want on the next one. Get 2 secrets or just go for that 10 damage. There's going to be some real like skill testing here on how quickly you need to pop off with Norgadon, how safe it is, and knowing your matchups is really going to help. So I think the floor on this card is solid, I'll say. I think there's going to be moments where 5 feels good, where increasing their costs feel good. I don't think you're going to be excited about the secret very often on the first pass, but the other 2 are a solid floor. And then the ceiling, if this does stick around for multiple turns, gets kind of nutty. And obviously, like, deal 20 could be crazy. So solid baseline, not as crazy as the Druid card to me, but still has some scary potential. So next up here, let's talk about the Titan Keepers. These are basically like the, what would you call them? Like lieutenants of the Titans, the helper dudes. They they chill on Azeroth and kind of enact the Titans' will. No one cares about the lore side of this, but these are just legendary minions, normal stuff here, no Titan keyword. Hodir, Father of Giants, for instance, is an 8 mana 8/8 with Battlecry. Set the stats of the next 3 minions you play to 8/8. So you can plop this down, and then if you've got cards that care about stat buffs, say charge minions, for instance, you can turn your boars into 8/8s basically after setting up the Hodir, or maybe, you know, just take a kind of a downturn a little bit. I'd say you're not very excited to play an 8 mana 8/8 for Hodir himself. That's going to feel like a pass in many cases. But then next turn, you know, you play a couple cheap taunt minions, rush minions, whatever it is, and you play for a really big swing the next turn after. That sort of thing sounds kind of like crazy to me in Arena, a format where stats are such a premium. I am less excited about this card in Standard, particularly because I just don't think like a charge angle is going to be particularly relevant. There are some things you could do. There's some cheap-ish charge minions, so it's definitely possible that this could set up a deal 16, but I think in a lot of cases the 8 up front is going to feel really punishing. Sitting on this until turn 8 is going to feel really punishing for a deck that's caring that much about damage and trying to look for finishers. Probably going to have some inconsistency issues. You'd better off just running, you know, faster early game or mid game to get some chip damage through. And then Hunter has plenty of other ways to go over the top and deal damage, historically speaking. So I don't know. This one feels pretty pricey for what it does. I don't think the honest, straight up board swing will feel compelling enough getting the extra stats out of this. And I don't think the lethality here, using this as a finisher, will be nearly as convenient as some people might expect. So cool, fun card. I like the idea of like giants, and it seems like we're gonna have a lot of kind of giant themed stuff, which makes sense. Maybe just not the most competitive looking to me. So moving on here, we've got Tyr, a 7 mana 4/5 with Battlecry, Resurrect, a 2/3 and 4 attack paladin minion. And that's pretty cool because we've seen some crazy good high cost paladin minions that have low attack values. The Anoyo Lord, for instance, is a 3 attack paladin minion, which obviously if you resurrect a 9 cost card that's just an endless wall of taunts, that's going to be pretty awesome as a result for Tyr. But I don't necessarily think you have to get something crazy like that. Honestly, just this big board redevelopment in a deck like Pure Paladin that cares a lot about these kind of sticky Divine Shield boards, these annoying boards, these waves of boards. There's probably going to be some great alignments where Tyr is just really good. You get 4 minions on board. You've been weakening your opponent's ability to deal with your stuff turn after turn after turn, and then turn 7, maybe Tyr is just the final piece of the puzzle that kind of breaks their back and deals the final lethal blows because they just ran out of removal or ways to deal with this. So this just feels like one of those efficient reload sort of cards, but then also has that potential for that sneaky stuff like an Oil Lord, where you're creating some kind of cool combo out of it because you got, you know, think about like a Malagos of old, not a great example for standard, but you get the idea. You can resurrect these sort of things cheaper, whatever sequence of cards might be helpful. Malagos, some extra spell damage, boom. Not ideal for Paladin, but pretend you have a combo that makes sense there, right? There's those little things that can line up, and then just raw stuff too, just big overcosted things with low attack value. So I can see a few different angles for Tyr basically, and I think he actually fits fairly well into pure Paladin as it stands already. So this looks like a pretty promising card. So next up is a neutral legendary location that's in the game right now. You can already play this. It's Prison of Yogg-Saron. It's a 7 cost legendary location, 3 durability this time. It's going to allow you to choose a character and then cast 4 random spells targeting that character if possible. So this could just be 4 Pyroblasts to the face, invoking Yogg in a major way. So listen, random spells generally aren't very good. You know, you're gonna get stuff that just fizzles or whiffs or does something awkward, and you spent 7 mana to do it. That is an incredibly high premium for an effect like this. So look, I'm gonna have super fun playing this. We're gonna meme around with this. We're gonna stream it later tonight. I can't wait. That sounds really fun. I think this is gonna be a very enjoyable sort of card. Control decks that can kind of maybe safely get to turn 7 can have some fun with this. Maybe just try to you know, hit a big threat on board, try to get a board clear out of it or something so they can stabilize the turn that they play it. You're not going to be looking for face damage. And then once it reloads 2 turns later, then maybe you start trying to get some lethals out of it or just more crazy plays. So clearly a card that needs some time to kind of get there, because I think 12 random spells, that feels really good for 7 mana. That's a Yogg basically. That first turn though, and even really the second activation, that's over a 3-turn window. Is 8 spells over a 3-turn window for 7 mana? Is that good? Yeah, right. That's pretty slow. That's not, I don't think it'll feel like it does enough fast enough for most matchups. So super fun card, just maybe not a super good card. So next up, let's talk about the other new keyword here. This is called Forge. And the way this works is cards with Forge, you're going to be able to drag them over your deck, kind of like you do with tradable cards. And if you want to do that, if you want to drag them over there, you will be able to spend 2 mana, cost 2 mana to do this, to upgrade the card via the Forge. So for instance, Embrace of Nature here costs 1 by default. It draws you a choose 1 card. It's a little bit of a tutor for a choose 1. If you want to spend the additional 2 mana to forge it, then the choose 1 card you draw is going to have both effects combined. So you've got this option here. If you're floating a little bit of extra mana, kind of like sometimes tradable can help you fill in that extra mana. This is even more mana, but if you want to fill it in, you can, and then just get stronger cards, which for Druid kind of makes sense, right? If they're getting a bunch of extra mana, sometimes they just have a hard time filling their stuff up, and suddenly this allows you to kind of double the impact of whatever choose 1 card that you draw for only 2 mana. That's going to be an upgrade that certainly feels worth it for certain choose 1 cards, and Druid has that luxury to spend extra mana anyway. So I actually like this card. I think as a base tutor effect, sometimes that will be useful. As a cheap nature spell, sometimes that will be useful. And then the Forge aspect, as soon as a great choose 1 card comes along where that extra effect is worth at least 2 mana, this is still going to feel like a really efficient way to upgrade that and pack more punch into a play even faster. So yeah, this looks really good. So here's another example of a Forge card in the neutral set, the Cyclopean Crusher. He's a 3 mana 3/2 or 3/3, excuse me, with Rush. And on Forge, he will gain 3/2. So if you want to, you can spend 2 mana on this card at some point, like on turn 2, for instance. And then on turn 3, you're going to get a 6/5 with Rush instead of a 3/3 with Rush. So I do like how this curves out really nicely from 2 to 3, but ultimately a card like this without synergies, without, you know, he's really still not that efficient. 5 cost. Like if you're playing this in an aggressive deck, trying to win the board, trying to get a 6/5 down, you're not going to want to spend 2 mana first to do that. If you're playing this in a reactive deck, a control deck, same story really, right? Like at 6/5, it's not eating that many things on board. It's not taking that many great trades. So spending 5 mana total for that, even if it does help you fill in gaps a little bit, most decks are just going to have better options. Low synergy plays like this just rarely ever see any cool play in Hearthstone. But I do think this is a cool showcase of Forge from like a curve standpoint. So an interesting design on a card, just not a compellingly powerful one. So next up, we're also getting more magnetic minions. And this was, I think, kind of teased really with the core set. Thought it was weird they just add in a little bit of magnetic without going back to the well. So we are going back to the well. And for Paladin here, we've got the Noble Mini Bot, a 2-mana 2/3 mech with magnetic. And after this attacks, give a random in your hand +1/+1. So do keep in mind these effects will go on to the card that is magnetized. So if you have a 1-drop mech, you play this on turn 2, you're going to instantly activate that hand buff, but also, of course, just get those extra stats. And I mean, magnetic cards are good because they basically have that flexibility to be buffs, to put those stats into play immediately. Spending, 2 mana to get an instant 2/3 buff, take a trade, hit Divine Shield minions. All that feels good. Paladin still has plenty of mechs laying around as well. I could certainly see a more heavy mech focus in a pure Paladin deck that's able to utilize cards like this really successfully. And the hand buff just fits along really nicely for that package as well, feeding into other future magnetic cards as well. Even another Noble Minibot, making each of those a little bit bigger and faster with their stat impact. So yeah, this again looks pretty dang good. Moving over to Rogue here, we've got the Spider with I in there. It's got an I. It's a 3-mana 3/4 mech beast. I think the design of this looks really cool. It is magnetic and stealth for 1 turn. So interesting idea here that if you have a mech on board whose stats or effect you care about, you can give that stealth for a turn. So giving stealth to a card that otherwise might not have access to it. I guess if I look at mechs in Rogue right now, nothing is coming to mind to me to be exciting in that regard. There's the Disc Jockey, the Beatboxer, and MC Blingtron, none of which will benefit in Standard from this particular play. Neutral mechs, again, I don't think there's any effects that are amazing. Maybe something like the Security Automaton that like scales as you go, but for the most part, nothing like crazy that you'd love to stealth. And the downside, of course, is when you give a buff via magnetic, I mean, often if that's already been on board, you want to attack immediately. And if you attack immediately with those extra stats, you waste the stealth for 1 turn because the stealth will deactivate when you attack. So this is a card you may want to play with something at the same time. I mean, I am not excited to play this in Security Automaton on turn 5. So maybe there's going to be other mechs that come into Rogue that enable this in some way. It is an interesting effect. It is just a powerful base stat line for magnetic. Magnetic always makes these stat lines look a lot better. So kind of intriguing, but feels like maybe we're missing a piece of the puzzle here. So next up here, we have the Fate Splitter, a new neutral epic, a 3-mana 3/3 Death Rattle. Get a copy of the card that killed this. So that's kind of interesting maybe for Thief decks, but man, often you're going to get cards that just aren't that interesting to you. Some cheap removal or just some garbage little token minion that like traded into this or whatever. That's not that interesting to play. So looks really cool. Like that is an awesome piece of artwork, but I'm not really seeing a lot of homes for this. There might be some weird like combo thing you could do where you use your own cards to kill this and you have like multiple Death Rattle activations and like, I don't know. That sounds super cheesy and hard to pull off, but at least a fun angle to explore with this card that, again, doesn't really sound all that competitive. And the next up is the Son of Hodir. I am vibing with this dude. He's an 8-mana 8/8 battle cry. Shuffle 4 8/8 giants into your deck that are summoned when drawn. So big old pile of 8/8s, dude. Again, much like we talked about with our previous 8/8 for 8, this is an effect that takes a while to get going. This is a pretty big pass on the turn that you play it. I think there will be very few decks that are able to make this work, but I am keeping an eye out a little bit in something like Druid. They're getting up to 8 mana faster. They may be able to more safely play this alongside other sort of cheated things. And then, we just saw a way for them to draw 10 cards or up to 10 cards. Maybe they're just going to dump A&R and like 3 8/8s all the time, and that's just going to be this just enormous board swing that helps you win the game. So I do see some interesting angles for this card in Druid specifically, and maybe there's another like big deck here or there that could make this work. So do keep an eye out as a flyer at Druid for this one. Also, again, sounds like a probably nutty arena card, I'm guessing, although I don't play arena. Moving on to Warlock, we got a new location here, the Forge of Wills, a 3-mana, 2 durability location. It allows you to choose a friendly minion and then summon a giant with its stats and rush. So you plop this down, you play something alongside it, and you get potentially a new big thing, or maybe even just happy to get a medium-sized thing, and then use that rush to trade it in. Now, it does say summon a giant. That might just be a flavor sort of thing, but I also have in the back of my mind that perhaps there will be some kind of giant synergy card where the fact that it is a giant is somehow relevant or beneficial to some kind of synergy or game plan. So tuck that in the back of your brain. As it stands straight up, not realizing any sort of giant bonus or synergy here, maybe a little bit less excited for this one. I think you know, sometimes you will get a slightly more efficient minion, but there's some clunkiness about playing this and getting the thing next to it. Like you play this on 3, you play something big on 4, summon another card. Are you gonna get a big enough play on turn 4? Is there a big 4-mana 8/8 giant that Warlock's gonna have access to, like the good old days with Mountain Giant? That might be a possibility for this one, but I think sometimes this is going to feel more clunky than efficient, and you'll feel like, oh man, I don't really have anything to use right now. I'm waiting to get the right minion, and it's like, ah, crap. This play didn't do anything. I would have rather just had an immediate play that made it impact right away, as opposed to like setting up or being clunky or delayed on this. And then our final card here is the Inquisitive Creation, a new mech for Mage. And remember, Mage does have a lot of mech still laying around. This is a 4-mana 3/4 mech with Battle Cry, deal 1 damage to all enemy minions. And then that is improved by each spell school you've cast this game. So a little bit of a, you know, a tiny baby board clear to start, and then you cast a couple spells, and this is suddenly Battle Cry, deal 3 to all enemy minions. I think that's pretty good. If you get this up to 2 or 3, it's already going to have some great results. Get up to 3 or 4, like that's actually a great, really efficient kind of board swing card. So if a deck is already running a couple spell schools, which most mages are happy to just run a couple, there's a pretty good chance that by the time you need this on turn 4, turn 5, wherever it is, you're probably going to have this up to 3 damage already, which I think is going to be actually quite powerful. I think this is going to be pretty consistent in Mage, and all kinds of grindier, slightly more defensive mage decks will happily use this as a nice little board swing that didn't take a lot of work to feel pretty good. So I think Inquisitive Creation looks strong. A&R the Lifebinder is a 5-star card. Norganon is a 4-star card. Hodier, Father of Giants is a 2-star card. Tyr is a 4-star card. Prison of Yogg-Saron is a 2-star card. Embrace of Nature is a 4-star card. Cyclopean Crusher is a 1-star card. Noble Minibot is a 4-star card. Spider is a 3-star card. Fate Splitter is a 2-star card. Son of Hodier is a 3-star card. Forge of Wills is a 3-star card. Inquisitive Creation is a 4-star card. And there you go, folks. That wraps it up for my first Titans review. I am beyond excited for the theme of this expansion. I love cards like Titans. These are so great for videos and content. Like, this is probably the most excited I've been about a Hearthstone expansion in a long time. Maybe technically ever. I just love this theme. Love these characters. So, good stuff. Good stuff. Curious to hear your thoughts on these cards. How good do you think they're going to be? Are you excited about this theme as much as I am? What do you think the other Titans are going to do? Share all those thoughts in the comments below. Thanks much as always for watching. Stay tuned for more reviews. And until next time, game on.